Today's session includes a webinar on disaster risk reduction and management, an offline workshop on plant tissue culture techniques, a paper presentation competition, and in the afternoon, our valedictory function and the announcement of results of various competitions. Before we begin today's webinar, I would like to remind all participants that you can post your queries regarding the webinar in the chat box, whether on Google Meet or on YouTube. And you should also ensure that your mic and camera are off during the course of the webinar. Let us begin. To handle our first webinar of the day, we are delighted and privileged to have Dr. Ashwati S. Nair, Agriculture Specialist, Kerala State Disaster Management Authority. She completed a BSc in Agriculture from Kerala Agricultural University, her MSc in Soil Science and Agriculture Chemistry from Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, and she obtained a PhD in Soil Science and Agriculture Chemistry from Professor Jayashankar, Telangana State Agricultural University. She has also worked as an assistant professor at the Department of Soil Science and Agricultural Chemistry in the Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, and she is the author of several papers which have been published in high-profile journals. We welcome you, ma'am. Over to you for the webinar.
Greetings of the day, and I would like to, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to give the brief on what is disaster and how we can reduce the disaster impact, disaster risk reduction. Before starting into the PPTs and section, I would like to give just a small brief on disasters. The thing is, I can still remember the day in my life when I feel that I will know about the disasters. What is actually the disasters, or how it is affecting the population, or what we should do if the disaster has arrived. Okay, that was out of curiosity. I thought in my early days, in school days, and even in the plus 1, plus 2 high secondary day, because we were not seeing any disaster in our surrounding, at least in Kerala we were not seeing. And in India also, disasters, the frequency of disaster occurrence was not that much high in that time. But nowadays the scenario has been changing drastically. Nowadays, by nowadays is after 2000. Okay, once the 2000 is started, the frequency of disasters, disaster in various types. It could be earthquake, or it could be flood, or it could be like a drought, tsunamis, cyclones, whatever it is. The frequency of occurrence is getting higher in India. Okay, and even in Kerala. So before 2000 or sometimes, when the people are thinking about the disaster, first they would think about the Japan. Japan is the capital of disaster. So what we will do, the Japan is the seat of earthquakes, even volcanoes. So we will see what is happening in Japan, and what is the pictures we are getting from Japan. What's the disaster is affecting, like that. Out of just we want to know, we are knowing that type of matters was happening. And up to 2002, the thing is, even our government, the government of India was not aware of disasters, or how we have to manage the disasters, or how we have to work to reduce the occurrence of disaster. Nothing. What the government of India was doing, they are just making the documentation of the disaster that had happened in India. Documentation in the sense, they are just making the lost. Okay, so how many people lost in the disaster, or how many commodities lost in the disaster, what kind of infrastructure we lost during the disaster. That type of documentation was doing by the government of India up to 2002, and our Department of Agriculture and Revenue Department was doing the documentation. So disaster meaning just we are doing the documentation of the loss. But the scenario has been changed, and the changed scenario had urged the government of India to think of this disaster rule. We have to come with a proper disaster rule in India. We have to start a disaster management authorities in national level and subsequently in the state level. That thought was came in after 2002. Exactly, if you are saying in Gujarat, one earthquake was happened in 2001. That was massive one, and that was followed by in 2004 tsunami was happened. Okay, so this Gujarat earthquake and tsunami that happened in 2004, that actually made the government to think of the disaster rule and where I am working now, the disaster management authorities and national disaster management, all the things. At that time also, one problem came actually that up to 2004, any of the ministry or any of the government people, authorities was not aware of this disaster rule, and they were in a rush. So what they did, at the time, this Australia and America, they have the established disaster. They just simply what they took the material from there, and they made some modification according to the Indian state, and they came with a disaster rule that is came into force by 2005, because we did unearth the Disaster Management Act in 2005, and all the definition what we are giving a disaster act have its own pros and cons also. Okay, so this is the history of Disaster Management Act or Disaster Management Authority. And in 2005, the Disaster Management Act came into force, and subsequently in 2007, in Kerala State Disaster Management Authority has been established, and it is working in different disciplines too. In agriculture sector, in hydrological sector, people are working on different perspective to reduce the disaster in their concerns. So, so now I think so. This is the brief of disaster management, how disaster management came in India, and how the scenario has changed from before 2002 and after 2002. Okay, so so now we can move to the disaster management and risk reduction, our today topics. Let me share the screen first. Okay. So, is the screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So today's our topic is disaster risk reduction and management. And before going for how we can reduce the disaster and how we can manage the occurrence of disaster, we have to know some basic terminologies of disasters, meaning in coming into section. So the terminologies, we should know what is disaster and what is the damage and impact associated with the disaster. At the same time, what is the risk, what is the vulnerability, and what's the difference between hazard and disaster, and how we can prevent the occurrence of disaster, or if the disaster occurrence, how we can manage the disaster. So these are the basic terminologies. Okay. So when it is coming to the first, disaster. So disaster meaning, you can think some society or community is functioning normal in all the aspects. In all the aspect meaning in their socio-economic and cultural, all the aspect it is functioning normally. And suddenly something happened. Something meaning it's not a good, it is a evenly matter, or it is something in a negative sense, something happened very seriously to the society, and because of that mishappening, society is totally disturbed. That type of situation we are calling as disaster. Okay, some society was functioning normally and something happened to the society very drastically, that mishappening, and because of that mishappening, the normal functioning of the society get altered. So what are the alteration in a negative way happen to the society? We can measure in terms of loss of humans, or some mishappening happens to the human beings, or economic loss, or some environmental impact. So this is called a disaster. Okay. And other two terminologies, disaster damage and disaster impact. So, people, when we are saying to some common people, this is the disaster damage and this is the disaster impact, people, sometimes common people make it confused. They sometimes they will ask what's the difference between disaster damage and disaster impact. Actually, now, you must have seen the flood and thereafter means in 2018 and 2009. So, if in July 12th, flood is happened in Alapi, simultaneously over the internet and the TV, we can see that these four people were when missing in the flood, and five people lost their life, and this 100 kilometers of road get disturbed totally. They are not in function. That type of assessment, meaning what is lost in the disaster, that type of assessment is disaster damage assessment. That anyone can do. Okay, we can do during the disaster or immediately after the disaster. But the next terminology, that is disaster impact. Disaster impact meaning it is not merely the sense of what is lost, but it will show because of that loss what happened to the society. You can understand easily. You can take a nuclear family as an example. Okay, so nuclear family meaning parents, two kids, and you can imagine one is bread earning for the family, either mother or father. One is the bread earner for the family. Okay, and he lost the life during the disaster flood or something. And what is the government of India giving as a compensatory amount is 4 lakhs. Okay, anyone who died, who lost their life in the disaster, they will get out of all the formalities 4 lakhs. Is this 4 lakhs will be sufficient for the remaining 3 lives to fulfill their all the needs? Kids need to take care of their education and normal their life cycle, their cultural. This all the things cannot be satisfied with the 4 lakhs. Okay, so the lost person number is 1 here, but the impact because of his loss to the society is not 1. Okay, it's very huge. That type of impact we will see. Okay, so you must have known two types economy is there in the society. One is this government normal economy, and another is parallel economy. The difference is first one involves the government, meaning the people, the funds released from the government, and the people, salarized people working for the government. They fix the amount of money as a salary or a grant or something they will get. Okay, that type of economy is one is moving in the country, our country. And if I get 10,000 as the salary from the government, I will use the 10,000 for 3,000 for the groceries and 2,000 for the home rent, something. I will use the 10,000. So that money is getting. One type of economy, normal people life. And another economy is there that is called parallel economy, where so many share markets and business people, all people are investing money, taking money, so in different sectors. Okay, so that if the flood is happening, the whole economical cycles get disturbed. Economic cycle meaning the whole business and the state, all the things are getting down. So that impact also not a, maybe you must have seen this out of this corona. So many business people get suicide and some mishappening happened. So that is not the loss of a person. Whatever the business he was doing and how many people were involving in the business, all people are affected. Okay, that type of very deep in study, that is called a disaster impact assessment, and it will take maybe a couple of months, and a group of people have to assess what is the impact. Okay, so that's the difference between disaster damage and disaster impact. And the next terminology is disaster risk. Okay, so this is the potential risk associated with a risk. Potential risk associated with a disaster. So, what does meaning is, you can take the Kerala. Kerala 14 districts are there. And you can take two places, place A and place B. Okay, and in place A, the population is 340 per square kilometer. And in place B, the population is 50 per square kilometer. Okay, so you can think that where in the place A, where the population is 300, uh, they must have so many what infrastructure facilities also. They must have built the multi-tier buildings. So many roads are there, maybe airways are there, railways are there. So many infrastructure, and the population density will be very high. And in another case where 50 is there, population density is less. So what is there? The associated infrastructures also will be very less. Okay, there will not be multi-tier building, and there will not be that much roads to collapse, and all these things will be there. So you can imagine in the landslide happened in both places, in A and B. So the losses that would have happened before and during and after the disaster will be more in point A than the point B. Okay, so that is called the potential losses that can happen with the disaster. Okay, so this potential loss is not the simply you can imagine. We can say this is the loss of life or injury or destroyed or damaged asset, but this is very difficult to calculate the potential loss associated with the disaster, because the potential loss associated with the disaster will vary, depends on the disaster and it depends on the place also. Okay, so if the flood is happened in Wayanad and the flood is happened in Ernakulam, the potential loss will be different. Okay, so and at the same time, if earthquake is happening in the high range area and if the earthquake is happened in Ernakulam, there also the potential losses will be different. Okay, so what the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority is the nodal agency for Kerala to deal with the disaster. So what the work is happening here is, the GIS people and subject matter specialists and all these people, they are making what susceptibility map for different disasters. Okay, landslide susceptibility maps are there, and flood maps are there, lightning susceptibility maps are there. So what they are doing is they will take the whole Kerala, and they are taking the one disaster landslide, and they will divide the entire Kerala into different zonation: highly risk zone area, medium risk zone area, and a low risk zone area. So by seeing that, we can understand that if the be the loss, and if the landslide occurs in Trivandrum, what will be the loss. So according to that, we should take the preventive measures in advance, or the preventive measure should be ready with each and every people to reduce the risk associated with the disaster if it happens today or tomorrow. Okay, so that is called a disaster risk. And this is other two terminologies, hazard and vulnerability. So this disaster is, as I said before, disaster is something that is a mishap happening to the society, and it will leave some bad scar on the society. Okay, that is called a disaster. Then people can ask, what is hazard? And what's the difference between hazard and disaster? Okay, that also we can say with an example. A heavy rainfall was happening. You can imagine a heavy rainfall is happening. Okay, that heavy rainfall we can call it as a hazard. And if the flood happened or landslip happened because of the rainfall, we can call that as a disaster. Okay, so the difference is, hazard is any natural phenomenon or process or human activity that can cause the losses to the life, or that can cause us loss of life and other damages if we left it unnoticed. Okay, so what we have to do is, each and every people have their own responsibility to prevent the conversion of hazard to disaster. Okay, so we must have the idea of where we are living. Okay, suppose I am living in Trivandrum. I must have known if the Trivandrum is coming under which zone for flood, where it is coming for a medium risk of flood, or it is coming under landslide risk of. So, like that, in which zonation we are coming, we must have known, and according to that, we should take the preventive measures. Okay. So now we know that the rainfall is getting increasing in Kerala. So we can expect the flood at any time. Okay. So, but our responsibility not lead the heavy rainfall to flood. If it happens to flood, we should call that as a disaster because that much huge loss will be coming to the society. So what we have to do? The rain, the heavy pour is there. Okay. So in order to avoid the heavy pour is coming to the soil or coming down should be go safe to the any river bodies or water bodies, or it should go the soil should absorb the water down to its profile. If that is happening, there will not be any flooding. Okay, like that people other cultural practices and environment protection measures other than this relating to river and this all the protective measures we have to take. If we are succeeding in that, we can anyway hazard will be happening. Okay, heavy rainfall will be happening, some sort of earthquakes will be happening, but at least we can prevent the turn of hazard into disaster. So this you can imagine this rolling stone as hazard, and a person is staying there. Okay, so 1 minute. 1 minute. So sorry. So let me. This rolling stone is the example for hazard, and so the person is standing down there. So if he is standing here, the stone will come and hit him, and he will die. So we can call that in this stone as a disaster. But instead of that, if the person is making some protective measures, like some tom he is making, that is resistance to this stone. If the stone is rolling down also, he will be protected from them. So that is the tactic. Okay, hazards will be happening, will be keep on happening. Heavy rainfall will be coming. All the things will be coming. So that is called a hazard. But our responsibility to save ourselves from the hazard and prevent the disaster. That is the basic of disaster management. Okay, and this terminology vulnerability. If the person is by knowing, okay, if one person is there X, he knows he is staying in the flood zone area, but still he is making the constructions that is susceptible to flood damage, and if he is doing agricultural practices with a very sensitive varieties, then what will happen? The heavy rainfall will be coming, and his all the economy that agriculture will be losing, and his home will be losing. So that type of things, if the person is doing, he is making himself vulnerable to disaster. But instead of that, what he should do, he should understand where he is living, and he should take the precautions meaning capacity building to avoid this stone to fall vulnerability. The opposite of vulnerability is capacity making. So that is called a capacity. If he is making protecting himself from the hazard, that we call capacity. And this capacity building can be we can't the common people can't do the capacity making alone. That day what is happening is this government rules and the government policies are there, and the subsidies are there, and from all the scientific organization we are providing the mitigation measures. For example, if we are doing agriculture in a drought zone area, we will have that the disaster management authority, concerned disaster management organization will be providing the guidelines. Okay, so some person is going to cultivate the rice in some drought prone area, there will be a protocol, okay, which variety they have to cultivate, and what is the water management, and what are the agricultural operation to mitigate the drought. So like that we should follow the things by adopting the standard procedures from the government organizations and other related organizations. We can improve our potential to save ourselves from the hazard and avoid the disasters. So these are the diagram. Vulnerable hazard is there. If the person is standing here, he is vulnerable and he is making himself exposure for the disaster, and that hazard will turns to disaster here. And if the people are protecting themselves from the hazard, this hazard will stay as hazard. It will not change to the disaster. Okay. So this is the equation to assess the risk associated with the hazard or disaster. So risk is equal to hazard. Hazard you can imagine with the rolling stone. And what is the vulnerability of the population? And what is the exposure and capacity? So how much we are good at making the this capacity, we can prevent the, or we can save ourselves from the hazard or disaster. Okay. And again, the definition of disaster. Actually, in the beginning section, I have said the DM Act came in India by 2005, and it has its own pros and cons. So, this what the Disaster Management Act is. In 2005, it came in force, and this Disaster Management Act has very clearly defined on the titles we have discussed here. Okay, what is disaster, what is hazard, what is vulnerability, and what is the other, what is capacity building, and what are the policies we should provide to prevent the hazard to disaster, how we can stop the disaster, or how we can reduce the risk associated with the disaster. All the things are well defined in the Disaster Management Act 2005, and we should follow what is the definition given in the Disaster Management Act for the actual field work. Okay, but the problem coming is, so this is a mere statement what they are giving as a definition for the disaster. So what the problem coming is, in disaster, all in DMNet, all the things are very well defined. Okay. So what is the compensation we have to give? If a person is died, we have to give the compensation of 4 lakhs. If the agriculture lost for 1 acre, what is the amount we have to give as compensation? And what is the compensation we have to give if the matching cow is died up because of some disaster? All the things are very different. But the main problem with the DM Act is they are giving the definition for entire India. Okay, it is not the site specific definition, or they are not giving the definition of drought for Kerala, or definition of drought for Maharashtra, the definition of drought for West Bengal. So what is coming is, we can't call, so we can take drought as an example. Okay, this drought has some difference from other disasters, because this drought is happening because of the long time short spill of water. Because simply say, if rainfall is not, if the land is getting not proper rainfall for a long time, what will there will be a shortage of water in soil, and there will be a shortage of water in the water basins, rivers and other water basins. So finally, ultimately, what will happen? Drought will be there. But you can take the example. You can say in Kerala, consecutively 3 monsoons. Southwest monsoon is the grand monsoon period for Kerala. Okay, so consecutively 3 monsoon period, we are not getting the rain. Okay, so we can see that all the river basin will be very dry, and the soil will not have enough moisture to support the plant growth. Okay, so the problem relating here is we can't our state government or our state any state disaster management authority can't call that as a drought. Okay, because in disaster management act there is a clear definition that, okay, the definition is very clear in disaster management act. We can call drought as an agricultural drought if the kharif sowing area is less than 50 percentage of the average sowing area, then only we can call that as an agricultural drought. Okay, so let me clear that drought is a disaster, and this drought will have impact on different sectors. In agriculture, it will have the impact. In drying a water basin, it will have the impact. Okay, so if the drought has impact on agriculture, we can call that as an agricultural drought. And if the drought has impact on hydrological basins, we can call that as a hydrological drought. If the drought has impact on groundwater, we can call that as a groundwater drought. So what is drought? Drought is because of the shortage of downpours that should get an average. Okay, but now you can take the example of Kerala and Uttar Pradesh. In Kerala, we are receiving, suppose we are receiving very shortage of rainfall for the last 3 or 4 months. Okay, so what will happen? The farmers, so because of the drought, it will have the impact on agriculture and it will have the impact on hydrology. So agriculture, what the impact is, farmers can't raise the crop successfully. Okay, so they will go for the cultivation, but because of water scarcity, the plants maybe die out, maybe die out of the water scarcity. But after seeing that also, state government can't announce that as an agricultural drought. If the state government able to announce that as an agricultural drought, then only we can give the compensation amount for the farmers. There is the problem arises. Okay. So also what the DM Act is saying, the initial sown area should be less than 50% than the normal. Okay, that is the condition. But that condition cannot be satisfied. Most of the time, that even though drought year, that condition may not satisfy in the Kerala. The thing is, Kerala people are little bit economically more stable than the Uttar Pradesh and North Indian state. So here, what the farmers will do, even the first sowing is getting failure because of the drought, they will go for the second sowing and they will go for the third sowing. And the initial period of crop season, they are able to give some sort of irrigation also. But that irrigation may not be sustained up to the harvest day. So what is happened? The crop maybe get failed in between the crop season. Okay. So actually the farmers deserving the compensation amount from the government. But our state government can't release the fund until they can announce that as agricultural drought has happened in the particular area. But according to DM Act, we can't say, we can't announce agricultural drought is happened to Kerala, because according to them a 50% reduction should be there, and that may not happen in Kerala condition also. This tragedy or this thing happened in Kerala in 2016 and 2007. So many farmers lost their agricultural field because of this drought, but their sowing area was not actual percentage. So even though state government want to compensate their lost amount or something, but we were unable to give the money. Okay, so this is the main when it is coming to the practical way, these things are very difficult to tackle, because we are giving very less amount of money compared to the loss that happen to the people. But that also someday it is getting difficult for the people. They are working as in the another side, policy making and all these things. Okay, so this is the DM Act. Definition of disaster. So you can Google in the net what is Disaster Management Act in 2005. So you will get all the definitions, compensation, details of the compensation amount to be paid for all these people. Okay. So So you can say that if someone is asking how the disaster is getting managed in India, according to what means? According to DM Act 2005. Okay, and the DM Act is purely or solely under the government of India, having the state have its own authority to monitor and making the documentation or memorandum, but finally it will be under the supervision of Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. Okay. So this is DM Act is one legislative way to manage the disaster and manage the disasters and hazards and its ill comings. Other than DM Act, some other legislative ways are there. Other than DMX, some other legislative ways are there which are using for handling the disaster risk reduction. Up to 2000 in India, for this disaster reduction, how we have to handle the disaster, how we have to reduce the impact. Okay, so in 1990, UN. So here you can see DMX 2005. This is Government of India. Other than this DMX, International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction 1990, this is UN sponsored. Yokohama Framework World Conference 1994, this is UN sponsored. International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, again UN. Hyogo Framework UN. And finally, it came up to Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Okay, so these are the framework or legal policies that works with the disaster. So this international, so you must have UN will declare every decades for UN will declare this 90 to 1990 this decade for natural disaster reduction, and after that they will go for next theme. Okay, so in the natural disaster reduction theme in 1990. The first time they are formulating or they are trying to make clear what is disaster, what is hazard, how we can reduce the risk associated with the disaster, how we can manage the disaster. So first time movers came from the international decade. These are all legal frameworks. Okay. The Yokohama Framework World Conference 1994. Here also all the UN members will be participating, and they will be making some goals, all these things. In Yokohama Framework also the same thing was happened. They made some goals for improving the sustainability of an area by reducing the disasters and risk. Okay, so after this Yokohama Framework Conference 1994, the consequent all the conference they will have some importance. They will have one theme as for the sustainability development. So you can see now, you can see most of the national international conference, one theme will be there for the sustainable development of the environment. That is after came after the Yokohama Framework. The International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, same thing. All the UN members will be participating and they will be making goals for all these things, disaster risk reduction. What is the main thing? How we can reduce, how we can reduce the impact to the society. And this DM Act is our Government of India. And Sendai framework that is concurrently going on 2015 to 2030. So this Sendai framework, either this Yokohama also one place in Japan, Sendai also one place in Japan, because as I said before, Japan is known as the capital of disaster. So most of the conference and speeches, seminar, and this legal frameworks will be happening in the Japan. Okay, so Sendai framework. So there is a difference between Sendai framework from other all these acts. The thing is, before said all the act or legal frameworks, they concentrate only on how to reduce the risk associated with the disaster, how we can stop the disaster. Okay, here in Sendai framework, along with the risk reduction or disaster risk reduction, they focus on how they can improve. Okay, how we can improve the social conditions. For example, I can explain that some goals are there in Sendai framework. Even along with the disaster risk reduction, they came forward with the goals like the social equality, gender equality, some like what are the things needed for the improvement of society, that also under the Sendai, and Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goals, climate change action. So these are the things as Sendai framework. And the thing is here in Sendai framework, it is 2015 to 2030. But for example, one goal is there, gender equality. They will give some 5 years of time span, and 5 years some action plans will be there. Out of these action plans they have to come for the goals. Okay, so that is the difference between Sendai framework and other international decade for natural disaster management Oklahoma framework. Okay, so it is better you can Google the end. I will show some what links will be there. You can Google what is Sendai framework, what are the goals associated with the Sendai framework, and what is Hoyoma in Oklahoma framework. This international decade for natural disaster relation is much important when we are concerning about the disaster management, because it's a very fundamental. So these are the legal frameworks that provides some strong foundation how we have to approach to the disasters. Then, so these are the basics of disaster. Next, next. So when we are seeing the disaster profile of Kerala, sorry, India is the second most populous country with the seventh largest country by the area. So you can think how thickly populated India is. So what is happening? Any disaster happen, its impact will be very high in India, corresponding to the when we are comparing with the other countries. Okay, and 59% of the land mass is prone to the earthquake, and the category will be coming in moderately to very high intensity. Okay, and 12% of the land is prone to flood and river erosion. Okay. So we have 7,500 kilometers of coastline distributing different states and union territories. Among them, 5,700 kilometers prone to cyclones. Okay, and when it is coming to agriculture, 68% of the cultivable land is vulnerable to agricultural drought. Okay, and hilly areas of India is very much vulnerable to landslide. So we can say northeast is there, Himalaya is there. So that type of hilly areas are very much susceptible for the landslide. So you must have seen the northeast countries, even maybe small or big, but a series of landslides will be reporting there in Assam and all these places. Okay. So tropical cyclones. These tropical cyclones will be coming in 13 coastal states and one union territory. This Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa and West Bengal. Okay, these states and this Pondicherry Union Territory, these states are highly vulnerable to the cyclone disaster. So this is for your information. What is the wind pressure and all the scientific. And this is the susceptibility map. Okay, so this type of susceptibility map is preparing for all the state across the Kerala, sorry, across the India. In Kerala, here we have the individual map for state. Okay, so by seeing this map, one can understand where he is, where if he is under the tropical cyclone high risk zone, then he or she has to ensure that we took proper preventive measures to not to act, not to become a witness for the disaster and floods. So for now, we all Keralites know what is flood. Okay, 2018 we witnessed a huge flood, and after 2018, 2019 also we see what is flood and how it affect our life and how many people lost their lives and what is the impact happened to our state. Okay, so that is flood. 7.5 million hectares are flood affect in our country per year. According to the National Commission on Flood, 40 million hectares are susceptible to flood, and Indo-Gangetic Brahmaputra plain is highly. And annual, they are getting the flood. Okay, so many people are losing their life and infrastructure facilities. All the things are getting lost. Then So this is the susceptibility map. So this type of maps are available for all the established disasters. Then it is also what's the thing coming forth with the flood is it came very the occurrence of flood will be very much spontaneous. Okay, on heavy if we are receiving a southwest monsoon of heavy, for example, 1 month or 2 months heavy southwest monsoon we are receiving, we can expect a flood. Spontaneous arrival and very flash nature will be there. And once the flood is came, we can't do anything. Just we can do the rescue and all other things, but prevention is not possible. So before in advance, if we are in high risk zone, we have to improve our capacity, not to turn to flood, the heavy rain. Okay. So this is the again earthquake you must have known. Gujarat 2001 on heavy earthquake came. So and this earthquake and after that tsunami came in 2004 that made government of India urged to start the Disaster Act in 2005. So earthquakes are very common. Kerala last month reported on earthquake, and north states earthquakes are very getting common. Okay, these all the things are actually when the frequency of disasters are more, we should understand we are getting more poor. Okay, whatever the things we made, either a cultural or social, all the thing can be vanished within a little time. So this is the susceptibility, earthquake susceptibility map in India. And tsunami, you must use systemic sea wave. And most of the time, tsunami can become as an after effect of earthquake. And landslides. Landslides is a common feature of this hilly area like the Himalaya, Northeast India, Nilgiris, and Eastern Ghats and West. And drought. So this drought, it has a different theme when we compare to all the disasters. Okay, earthquake also sudden appearance, flood sudden appearance, tsunami sudden appearance. But drought is very slowly manifesting disaster, but it is very difficult to monitor the drought or very difficult to give the early warning also. Okay, and once it start also, it will not disappear in that much ease. It will extend for a long time also, and it will affect all other sectors in agriculture, hydro sections, all these things. Okay, so whatever the disaster we discuss, you should understand whether it is flood, whether it is drought, whether it is earthquake. It will have its impact in all sectors. In agriculture, it will have an impact. Okay, if the crop production is going down, that will influence to the social. Meaning the social life of the people. Most of the time, time we are seeing that agriculture, the ladies will come for the labor, so their earning will most of the time act as a sole income for the family. Okay, so if the flood is came, the whole agriculture system will be get damaged. So it will take 1 or 2 years to establish again one Padashekaram or something. So the whole time, 1 year or 6 months or 1 year, the people, the agriculture laborers are left unwaged. Okay, so if they are not getting proper salary, what is happening? That will reflect in their personal life. Their family will be reflecting. Their kids will go for hunger. Their education will be disturbed. So any disaster, it will have multiple impact. We can't simply say that okay, once disaster has been happened and it goes 10 people died and 500 hectares of agricultural land got damaged and 8 dams got disturbed, not like that. All the aspects. So we are, if you are saying, if we are taking drought, we will have the different category, agricultural drought. That depends on impact of drought in agriculture sector. Then hydrological drought, impact of drought in water basin and all these things. Then it goes for socio-environment drought, cultural also. Drought is shortage of downpour. but it has effect on all the sectors. So we will categorize agriculture drought, hydrological drought, and all these things. So whatever the disaster happen, it will have multiple phases. So that's the importance. Everyone should be aware of disaster and hazard. We should be very much conscious that hazard should never convert to the disaster. And the disaster management is the broad term that we are using for disaster risk reduction and disaster risk reduction and to avoid the disaster from happening. So disaster management cover all these aspects: prevention of danger or threat of any disaster, meaning hazard should not convert to disaster. Then mitigation meaning all time we will not able to prevent hazard to turn to disaster. Okay, so whatever the things we are doing, something that will be happening. So at the time, what is our aim is we have to reduce the intensity of disaster. So that is called the mitigation. Then capacity building. Capacity building meaning anyway disaster is happening. If this two stage has lost from our side, so the disaster will be happening there. So we have to protect our people. So that is called a capacity building. Capacity building is normally we are doing by providing the early warning, like the low alert, like that alert will be issuing. So people knowing tomorrow heavy rainfall is there. Also we have to stay safe. Okay, that type of information dissemination. So many things will be there. That is called a capacity building. Preparedness to deal with any disaster. We will understand the people how they have to deal with it. So what we are saying, we will understand. We came to know that a particular village will go under flood tomorrow. So what the people are doing? Suddenly the revenue department will reach the place and they will make the people out from the particular village and they will move to the camp, and they will in the camp they will make arrangement of their food, primary crop requirement, clothes, foods, all these things. That is the aspect of preparedness to deal with any disaster. Okay. Then damage assessment, impact, all these things will be there. Same thing. So this is the disaster risk management cycle. Preparedness, mitigation, prevention, mitigation, preparedness. These are pre-disaster risk reduction phase, and development, recovery, response. So these are post-disaster recovery phase. Okay, prevention is in such a way that our soil should be very healthy to absorb how much water how much is the amount of downwater getting. Our soil should be very healthy enough to absorb the water. Our water system should be able to catch hold all the rainwater. So and our other buildings construction all in such a way that they will protect the infiltration. They will favor the infiltration of water to the water bodies of soil system. If you are able to do that thing, heavy rainfall will not come to the flood. Okay, I am taking this heavy rainfall as an example. It is same for all the things. Mitigation meaning whatever the things we are doing, some sort of disaster will be happening, but the intensity will be less. Preparedness meaning early warnings and all these things. Response, you must have known in the flood how the fishermen people immediate response. We should not think twice. We should reach there, immediately evacuate the people, immediately make them safe side, hospitalization, protect the vulnerable people like kids and old people. That is things are coming response. Then it is coming recovery. Recovery meaning you must have known people will lost their homes and things. They should be re-established. That is coming recovery and development. So these are the slides. Prevention. This is prevention. The hazard should not turn to disaster. That is prevention. Okay. So anyway, that is hazard will come as disaster. We need to protect ourselves to reduce the intensity. That is called a mitigation. This is preparedness. It is happening. We don't have that much capacity. Just run away. That is called a preparedness. And response. Save the people. And a reconstruction of their lost homes, their primary needs, the hospitals, all these things. Rehabilitation, rehabilitation means reconstruct this lost thing. Resilience means ability of the system to construct again. That depends on so many factors. What is the economy of our nation, what is the mindset of the people, how many people are willing to work with us. So it is very difficult. Resilience. Obviously, the primary factor will be monitoring. So you can see the list of major disaster. Earthquakes are happening, cyclones are happening, and earthquake, tsunami, flood, avalanche, all type of disasters are happening in India. So this is 2018. Our massive flood happened in Kerala, torrential rainfall. So normal rainfall. What was the average was this one. In 2018, what is happening? Around 1000% this rain got excess. Okay, so that was the reason things were not our in our control. So the flood was happened and it was very massive. So these are the legal frameworks for the disaster reduction, international decade of coma, international harm. So you please go through these all the things just to do the Google. So you will get a very clear idea what are the motto of international decade and what is the action plan to achieve the motto. What are the nations participate in this and what was the output. Like that you will get a clear idea of it. So this is the DM Act for India. So National Disaster Management Authority, our Prime Minister will be the chairman, and in this all the state will have the State Disaster Management Authority. Concerned Chief Minister will be the chairman, and when it is coming for the District Disaster Management Authority, Collector will be the chairman. And this okay. So if you are taking the Kerala state, the authority is Chief Minister. Then if it is coming for the Trivandrum, first Chief Minister will be there, then Trivandrum Collector will be there. Then under the Trivandrum Collector, then collect not under, after one chairperson will be there, must be some senior civil servant, and either district collector or some senior civil servant. Under the chairperson, vice chairperson will be there, and the members will be there, the nominated members will be there. So all these people will constitute a expert committee. Okay, so you can take Trivandrum expert committee for disaster management is Chief Minister, and collector, chairperson, and district here member secretary of Kerala State Disaster Management Authority obviously will be there. Executive other nominated members will be. So this is the people who decide the prime important things for how to deal with the disasters. Okay. So this is the Disaster Management Act. These are flood-prone area of Kerala population. If the flood happened in a heavily populated area, obviously that meaning exposure is more, so the risk will be more. You must remember that equation. Okay, risk is equal to inversely proportional to capacity, directly proportional to risk, vulnerability, exposure. So this is satellite image. So this slide shows the period of time which flood is happened in Kerala: June, July, October, November. Landslide, July, because in June if you are getting heavy rainfall, the soil will be disturbed, and from July onwards we can expect the landslides. And last one, funding. Okay, so the fund is we are maintaining state disaster relief fund is there. Okay, that is under the Provision of Disaster Management Act 2005. And for example, if the Kerala getting for 2000 and 2002, Kerala getting 1000 crores as the fund as a state disaster relief fund, it is coming from the National Disaster Relief Fund, and every portion will be going for each state. Okay, that is called a state disaster relief fund. It is coming from National Disaster Relief Fund. So in Kerala, if you are receiving 1000 crores as state disaster relief fund, 75% to 90% will be coming from National Disaster Relief Fund, meaning from central government. Remaining 10% will be coming for state. Okay, like that we can get the funds. And in the from one more provision, one more thing is there. Other than this common disaster, state-specific disasters are there. State-specific disaster meaning lightning and soil piping heat waves are the state-specific disasters for Kerala. But that may not be state-specific disasters for Andhra Pradesh. So, among the whole fund, 75 to 90 percentage of the yearly allocation of SDRF should go to the general disaster, meaning flood, drought, like the general. Only 10 percentage we have to go for the state specific disaster. So you can think soil piping has been happened very crucial in Kerala, and out of this 10,000 crores, 10 percentage we use for the soil piping, but that was not sufficient. Then, as from state, what we have to do, we have to prepare the memorandum showing all the current happening to the NDRF, okay, National Disaster Relief Fund. That should be go from our chairman. Our chairman meaning concerned state chief minister. That will go to the National Disaster Relief Fund. Then after that, once the memorandum reaches to the National Disaster Relief Fund, a high-level committee will be coming to check the situation. If all is well, meaning not all is well, if they are assessing the situation, and if the need demands the extra amount, we will get the extra amount. That is the way we are handling the disaster situation. Same in the case of general category also. General disaster also, if we are not in money, we can write the memorandum. High-level committee will be coming to the state and they will inspect the situation, and after the inspection they will decide whether our memorandum is actually needed or if it is a need or they will release the fund for us. And these are the same thing. These are how the local authorities prepare to deal the disaster. Meaning local authority, meaning revenue of village officer, LSGs, all these local authorities. Every people should get proper training how to deal the disaster, and they should be ready with all the resources to deal the disaster occurrence. And all the constructions and all the things should be checked with the risk. If the LSD is under the flood risk, their construction should be in such a way that if the flash flood is there also, they will be safe. Okay? And at the time, if any collector or any district authority demands to do, they have to do according to the situation. And these are the, if you are seeing some disasters are there, you can call 1077 as a district control room, 1070 state control room, and a national control 011/107. These are the numbers every people should know. And these are the emergency kit and first aid kit. So what is happening, we will issue the early warning. Flood can be there, flood can be in your location within 2 days. So people should prepare the emergency kit and first aid, either emergency or first aid kit, because once you reach the camp, immediately you may not get the good water to drink. Okay, so next tragedy we are seeing is people after reaching the camp, they will get the diseases, cholera, diarrhea, like that. That's the problem is immediately they will not get the good water. So water, food and medicine, all the things, their personal medicines, all the things should be ready with the emergency kit. And these are the website, you can go for the reference. What are the terminologies, what are the cycle to deal with the disaster, what is the SDRF, how is the NDRF, and what is the state steering committee, and how the funds are raising, all the things, and what are the international legal framework other than our Disaster Management Act. All the things will be available in the downset updates. Okay, so these are the presentation, and I think I ended with the proper time. So you can ask any doubts.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwati, for the insightful and informative talk. We'll now take questions from our participants. And shall I present the questions?
Yeah, sure.
And the first question is, how is Kerala currently incorporating biotechnology for disaster management?
Actually, we are asking for the agriculture department to come up with the disaster management plan. Okay, meaning we are requesting as a suggestion. In that, from the biotechnology, what we are expecting is we should come with the new improved varieties. For example, drought is happening. We should come with the more varieties. Okay, so the farmers are cultivating that variety. They can save their crops. Like that, each disaster specific. If we are able to, agriculture university is able to come with the varieties and the management practices, we can save the agricultural population in a good, and the proposal is on the way. That is why we are expecting. Okay.
Thank you. For the next question, how and in what ways can vulnerability to disasters be characterized? The participant would like to know what are the different types of vulnerability with reference to disasters.
Vulnerability, so physical vulnerabilities are there, monetary vulnerabilities are there, okay, social vulnerabilities are there. I can substantiate with an example. You can say two people are there, one is mine and one is Anjali. Okay, I'm staying in Trivandrum and I don't have any physical impairment. I'm monetary well also, so I will have the cell phone all the time with me and internet access all the time with me. But Anjana, she is having some ear problem also, and she is staying in some backward position also. So the thing is, even though state disaster management or any nodal agency is providing the early warning, it will reach first to me, okay, because I am handling different operation. She is having impairment, so even though it is coming through the radio, it will not be, okay. And I am monitoring well also. So what I will do, once I get the information, I will fly to some other area. I can take the airway, water, because money is not a problem for me. So that time, monetary, social, our physical situation, all the things are different vulnerabilities are there.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is, survival and coping with disasters is difficult, especially for senior citizens. So, is it relevant to make such people more competent to survive during the time of disasters?
Sure. Actually, so many this trainings has been conducted from here and other organizations also. How they have to handy about the early warning system, how they have to know the things, and even though there are some type of things, to which number they should call first, and what are the emergency kit they have to prepare, what are the medicine they have to store. So many trainings has been conducted to save this vulnerable people.
Those are all the questions. So, thank you so much, Dr. Ashwati, and we are extremely grateful to you for conducting such a webinar and for answering all of our questions. So, on behalf of all of us here at College of Agriculture, Vellaini, Team SymBioT would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think it will be some beneficial for you. I'm happy for that. Thank you.
Dear participants, we will begin the paper presentation competition shortly. I would request all the contestants to remain ready with their presentations. We will invite you based on your participant code.